All right, thank you, Alex. Welcome to the Thursday, February 12th, 2026 Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Core Group meeting. It's here located at the main meeting room in the municipal offices at 8 Conway Street, South Deerfield, Mass. This is a hybrid Zoom. We have board members Denise Mason on Zoom, who will be a part of our quorum. This meeting will be held in a hybrid fashion with the opportunity for both in-person attendance and remote participation. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast. Otherwise, required by law, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on the agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be held here in the main meeting room in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A. Anyone intending to record the meeting must identify themselves to the clerk and provide their name and address for the record. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. We'll start out with public comment because our friend David is here and he would like to say some things. So go ahead, David.
Thank you very much. My name is David Johnson. I live 112 North Main Street, directly across the street from Frontier. And having watched the video presentation of the prior meeting, a question came to mind. I was listening to the presentation about concerns about Kelleher Drive and the upper culvert and the lower culvert. And the conversation seemed to rotate back to concerns about the lower culvert. My question is, was not the lower culvert already replaced several years ago?
Yes, and just to clarify, it is adequate to pass. It was designed to pass the water, but what happened is the culvert, what we were actually talking about is the Pleasant Street culvert was blocked and is inadequate, so the water backs up there, even though it should, have enough capacity to pass. And so if we upgraded the Pleasant Street one, that's where the confusion was. If we upgrade the Pleasant Street one, then the water would pass without backing up at the culvert right at the head of Kelleher Drive. There is a culvert that is semi-collapsing or inadequate at the end of Kelleher Drive that is also an issue.
That was my understanding, that the concern primarily is the culvert on Pleasant Street, and that made complete sense to me. My concern was that the culvert that was just replaced might need to be upgraded and replaced again. And of course, I'm very concerned about that because of a very unpleasant experience I had surrounding that, and I shared some information with you surrounding that already. I'm also very concerned, though it's not on the agenda at the present time, about how ultimately the culvert crossing North Main Street, right, part of which is on my property, directly across the street from Frontier, will have implications and cause additional subsequent damage to my property, but that's several years down the road. So my concern primarily around the Kelleher Drive culvert was to determine whether or not the newly installed culvert was going to be again updated in some fashion with more construction, but that's not the case. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I'm sorry that we caused you more distress about that. It just, John Pachorik, our police chief and emergency manager, is the one that has cleaned out the Pleasant Street one, and that helped pass some water, additional water, but it is definitely undersized.
Right. He did share that with me, and it made so much sense. I mean, given all the problems we've had there, of course, I walked over and took a look, and it just seems like, an engineer I'm not, but it seems wildly inadequate for the water itself. So, thank you for the clarification on Kelleher Drive. And the second thing is just a concern I have regarding construction on the Pleasant Street culvert. And the concern is that, long story short, when the culvert on Kelleher Drive was replaced, because of the soil content in the clay, my entire house vibrated all the time the construction went on. And I reached out to a number of people in town here trying to get some assistance. And the most action I got was I was referred to the construction company who brought in an engineer who said that the damage to my house would have happened ultimately just from 18-wheelers driving by my house. I've been living there for 30 years. 18-wheelers have not done that. However, so many of my ceilings and walls were cracked that it came to $60,000. Now, I know that people said, okay, well, we understand that you had a settlement with the contractor's insurance company. Well, I did. But because they brought in an engineer, they decided that the settlement would be $13,000. So I had to eat the rest for damage done to my home by replacement of the Kelleher Drive culvert. Now, I share that with you not because I'm looking for people to be remorseful, but yes, I'm concerned that more damage will occur to my house if and when the North Main Street happens. But more importantly, looking at the Pleasant Street culvert, I would recommend that people in residences in that immediate area be allowed to take photographs or video of their homes before the construction starts. So that if there is damage because of the clay, I mean, all of our homes sit ultimately on clay. And as I shared with you, I have video of my house vibrating, video and audio of my house vibrating. And as I was thinking about Pleasant Street, I was thinking there are homes there as close to the construction site as mine. And I think the stage is set for additional damage, not unlike my own, to the homes in the immediate area when the Pleasant Street construction begins. So I offer that to you not as a complaint, but as a preventative concern for the residences in that immediate area.
I think that's a smart, proactive kind of measure. And I think because of your situation, and also the contractor was horrible. I mean, poor Kevin Scarborough had a tough time with him as well. So we'll do that, David. And I want to thank you for bringing it up.
Well, thank you. And I do, again, I offer that to you as a preventive measure. Ounce of prevention, pound of cure. And I'm thinking, okay, we basically live in the same neighborhood. We're several houses apart, Pleasant Street and my own home. But again, you know, I'm not an engineer, but I know we're a former lake bed, and I know about the soil. And I'm thinking, okay, then I'm suspecting that there's a consistency of the soil all in that immediate area, particularly adjacent to the brook. And I think the stage is set for some possible difficulties.
Thank you, David. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I did have one question, and maybe it's for members here, but was there any soil studies done with depth? Do we have any topography depth soil studies? You know, I can grab it from USGS kind of stuff, but just interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I appreciate that.
When we get to the actual construction stage, don't worry. I think we're going to have much more of a preventative kind of program.
Well, thank you. Lesson hard learned for me. If and when more construction takes place, given I already have significant amounts of video and audio of the damage while it was occurring, I certainly will be taking still and video of my now fully restored house. So that should something happen, gosh almighty.
Thank
Okay,
you.
So we'll get back to the meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm
That's all right.
I do some concurrent work with law enforcement and I'm on call, so I do apologize.
No problem. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to come in, especially going to work tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Megan and Kyla, why don't you come up? And we're going to move right on to the MVP minutes. Does everyone had a chance to read the minutes? Denise, did you read the minutes? Would you make a motion to approve the minutes? Or
I'm sorry, I did not read the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Pete?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Cece? Denise?
Staying since I didn't read them.
Okay, and I, Carolyn. Okay, we'll move right on. I just, we'll skip the sponge, community discussion in lieu of the fact that we're running a little behind here. And we'll, with Megan and Kyla both here. Megan is, our new executive for the, Massachusetts Association of Conservation Districts, and Kyla is our admin for the Franklin Conservation District. Let's move on to, the application discussion, number 4, Echo One Stop Application Review. Did everyone, unfortunately, it didn't come until this morning. I was in a meeting and I didn't get a chance to review it until noontime. But did everyone have a chance to look at what the Conservation District was going to submit on its own, and under the advice of Andrew Smith from MVP, he thought we should roll it in as part of our town submission rather than have a separate submission from the Conservation District. And this is part of, I'll turn it over to Kyla and Megan, but this is part of what the Franklin District was doing with residential properties in our innovation grant and then a biodiversity grant. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys to talk to the committee about.
Yeah, well, hi, everybody. I'm Megan. Nice to see you.
You got to get a little closer, Megan,
I
these
like that.
things.
I think we were hoping you would have more time to look at this before we would discuss it, so I apologize for its late arrival. I was curious really to hear from you all about any questions that came up for you as you were reviewing the document. I will say that part of this is our vision for what could happen. And there are we tried to parse it out into discrete sub-projects too, so that if there was an interest in doing part of this proposed project sooner and part of it later under another opportunity perhaps, that can easily be seen hopefully in the structure of how we laid out the document. The majority of this work would rely on the subcontracting of a local company, Abound Design, owned and founded and operated by Owen Wormser, who we've worked with on several projects related to nature-based solutions, specifically native plants, demonstration gardens in Franklin County, as well as doing lots of residential consulting and establishment of pocket gardens around Franklin County. So we have a history of working with Owen. He also has a lot of visible work on the landscape in the valley, and there's lots of big name properties that he's can call very satisfied customers. So we have a lot of confidence in his ability and his company's ability to do this kind of work. So the budget, which is on the last page, is designated as having the different sections that would be led by Abound Design. And then the last portion of the budget is the portion that Franklin Conservation District would directly oversee and administer. And so most of this project is envisioned as having a 2 to 3 year time span. I think 2 years is going to be the majority of the concentration of the work, and the budget reflects that as well. So happy to take questions, or if there's anything I should have mentioned with that first spiel.
I think one of the things that we took in consideration was the training of the DPW, and then also overseeing some of the maintenance to make sure that DPW over a period of 2 to 3 years understood what was required. It's supposed to be minimal, but there has, during the transition, there was some misunderstanding of some of the projects that were already done in town. So we just want to clarify it.
So who pays for this is the question, and does the town have to contribute money to this?
This would be a financial bid to part of the MVP proposal.
Okay, so this would be something we'd be asking the state to
Yes.
help fund.
I had a meeting with Andrew Smith because we were planning a kind of a parallel proposal with Deerfield. And he said, I think it makes a lot more sense, and it'll make a lot more sense to the committee, the review committee, if you put this into Deerfield's proposal. So we're bringing our ideas to you to see if you also agree that they're aligned with the goals of the town for resilience and for water quality and general health as well. There's lots of things we're trying to get at through this project, including public health. And so we have specific ways that we would be getting at those goals, but the majority of the funding would be coming from the MVP program. We do have a couple of items on our portion of the budget, that last portion called project coordination, that have been proposed to other grant programs. We'll have news on that before this proposal is due.
She's talking about the innovative grant that I just referred to. It's about 55,000.
I was actually talking about the community.
biodiversity.
Oh, the biodiversity grant
which
too.
We should
Yeah.
hear back
At both of
early
those,
March.
yeah.
Okay.
Both of those.
Well, I'm assuming that we're going to get the innovative grant, but the biodiversity one is the one that, who knows?
Right.
But they are in support of this additional work. That's going to happen. And they're under the innovative grant, if we don't get this funded, there is some leeway to do some extra stuff under there. But we're hoping to get it. We were hoping to have a larger amount from MVP to work with so that you can do the whole watershed, because we have the residential and the farming already covered between the innovative and the biodiversity grant. And so this is the town portion
Okay,
Which-
so
that wouldn't be eligible for the innovative grant or the biodiversity grant.
it sounds like you know this stuff, but we don't.
Mhm.
So I have some questions.
Sure.
So this is a 2 to 3 year project timeline. So would we be asking for multiple MVP grants, or would we be asking for one overarching grant that would be administered over a 3-year period?
Well, we didn't know how long is the period that you have from the time of award? How long is the period that you have to actually implement the plans?
Usually it seems to me it's a multiple year, we set a completion date when
It's usually 2 years.
Yeah, the funding duration on the website says 1 or 2 years.
So that would definitely get at the bulk of this. I think that the 3-year mention was for continuing to support DPW.
Yeah.
And so this budget is for this single grant proposal, but the project timeline that's described in this 4-page document is seen as taking place over 2 years.
Okay, yeah, and so the budget's broken down, and so we have budget for Bloody Brook Monument Park, then we have town-owned properties, and there's an estimate of 545,000. And just trying to get my head around, are we asking MVP to fund 545,000 and have our match? I'm just trying to understand.
What was the match question?
Well, usually MVP requires a town match, right?
Well, when I spoke to Andrew
Or is it
Smith,
no
he
longer
said
that way?
Deerfield is exempt from match requirements.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah, they have like a new rural or small town
That's right.
designation that doesn't require match.
They haven't
And-
checked our EQV yet?
No.
Oh,
And we were going to use federal money to match anyway, if there was a requirement, because we are, like I said, doing other projects up and down Bloody Brook. But there's no need to even list that because there isn't a requirement for a match.
So some of the narrative might be helpful, in addition to the budget. The main goal, so looking on page 2, under A1, is not only restoring the town-owned portion of Bloody Brook between North Main from the Bloody Brook Monument all the way down here to the train trestle, right? That's what we're talking about. It's doing the town-owned properties, but then also allowing for the possibility of outreach to the properties that are not town-owned. I think there's a three houses, 3 or 4 houses? Pete, how many do we see on that stretch? Four residential properties, as well as the commercial property that is there. And then whenever the redevelopment has occurred at the senior housing, what's been described as the senior housing site, a third of that could be done now ahead of redevelopment, but then the rest of it could be done after redevelopment. So some of this is dependent on how the timelines work out on other projects too. But the main focus is the town-owned properties between North Main and the train trestle. So all along the high school, the elementary school.
I brought a map up just if you wanted to.
Thank you, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could run your cursor along the stretch we're talking about.
Yeah, so this is right, the railroad right here in red, and then Bloody Brook running behind the playground, and then running through these private parcels, and then also extending into where the Frontier parking lot is likely going to be restored. And I think the way we talked about it was also that maybe this work would pair very well with the order of conditions and the restoration work that the school is going to have to do as part of both the playground and the Frontier parking lot projects anyway. So it might actually save the town some money in the sense if we could have the restoration work align up right about the same timeline.
And then, Alex, do you mind going across almost near this gentleman's house at the Bloody Brook Monument? So, right in that little crescent there, right? So in that area is where number 58 is, I think, right?
Yeah.
That we were planning to install more of a sort of a home landscape type of native plant garden that would also feature signage that explains why native plants and points people to the project that's been done along the town-owned portion of Bloody Brook and has connections for people to access more resources, both to the district, which has been doing this work for 3 years now with residents, and also to get started in their own landscapes. So that's what that is describing, and on the budget where it says Bloody Brook Monument Park. So there would be sort of a feature site there, but then the majority of the restoration work would be happening across the street and extending around, wrapping around the elementary school.
Right. Have you been involved in the speak?
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Just to point out, right now, the NOI for the playground, right about where that cursor is, by the ball field, is a restoration zone that they have to put in as part of the NOI. I forget the count. It might have been 14 to 16 trees, shrubs in that area. So we might be able to combine.
It was supposed to address most of the cost of the NOI, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a way to fund it and not use town funds for that.
Okay. So that's right,
Yeah.
right where that cursor is right now, right in that area, just above it, right where the field is open. It's going to be a restoration area right in that area. And then what we're looking at, what Megan's talking about is a little bit lower in that riparian zone to increase the native plantings, the wetland plantings, look at invasive species, the removals and things of that nature.
What, not to skip around or confuse things, but one of the whole ideas here is this whole sponge community is to do, we need to calculate what we're doing, the work there, what we're increasing capacity is, all this work that gets done is we're trying to figure out how much we're sucking up additional. And so the preconditions and then the post conditions need to be documented. And that's part of, the project too. Because every little corner that we do something with that will filtrate and hold water, we want to make sure we're documenting. So that would be the only thing when I read through this afternoon more carefully than between meeting times. I somehow we just we need to convey that what the point is to, work on calculating what we're taking the nuisance flooding, your 10 to 20-year storms, and bringing them down to the 2-year level. And one of the discussions when we get into the sponge community thought is that instead of looking at the 100-year storm, which the downtown here is basically under 16 inches of water, and then how much working up to get capacity to store some of that water. So Tim and I had gone to a discussion on sponge communities, and the big thing was you need to look at bringing down everything you can to the 2-year storm level, and then you will end up reaching that 100-year storm potential. You'll never mitigate it to zero, but the flooding potential risk has been reduced by addressing the actual nuisance flooding, which, it happens all the time. We say 10 or 20-year storms. Well, we have that sometimes every other week down here.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to bring capacity so you're bringing those 10, 20-year storm levels down to the 2-year storm levels. So if we document what is existing, what the Conservation Commission is requiring in that area, and then we calculate what we can do to improve it. And that somehow we need to put that in, that's the intention of this.
Do you have current measures? Are you
Well-
monitoring currently? Are there any pre-data?
No, I mean, we have the hydrology study that we did that has calculations, but, and they are the data, Pete can probably address it better as a scientist, but, the data, there is data there, there's no question, but we didn't put enough money into it to have precise preconditions, right, basically?
Yeah, as far as, I'm going to say uptake potential.
Yeah.
Uptake potential. Just looking at that photo though, it's like, I think kind of the rule of thumb from a riparian zone area for wetland uptake, a 10 to 20 foot corridor around the brook coming through is would be ideal. And I'm sure there's calculations available to show that that much would hold this much water. But you can see there that there's a good stretch of that's well under that amount. So if we had, and if you go up Bloody Brook, you can see it's channelized so much up through that we've lost a lot of uptake. So just repairing a lot of the riparian areas and letting them do their job. I don't want to speak, for you guys, but I think the calculations are kind of out there, X number of acres this wide, depending on soil types and such, will be able to absorb this much water without doing a specific study. You'd have to do a really specific study on the hydrology and the geology and the depths and so forth. But you kind of get conceptually kind of where,
Yeah. We're hoping that as we do more work, we'll be able to have more calculations, but that was one of the things that I was hoping for. Did anybody else have any questions? Denise, did you have any questions? Okay.
I did have one question or just I guess it's a question for the training. So it's up to a 3-year period for the DPW. Conceptually, does that involve, training the trainees to be trainers down the road? Selecting individuals that will become trainers from the DPW so they can be, maintained down the road?
Yeah, I think that's the goal for sure. is
Yeah,
to
okay.
equip the DPW. to
So
be
the
able to take it on.
documents, the SOP, the training, develop a trainer for
Even
the
show,
trainees.
I don't know how formal it would be, but I think that what Abound Design is prepared to do is to give the workshop, right? Give the workshop, give the schedule, give the maintenance strategies, because I know, for example, it really matters when you're mowing or weed whacking, as mentioned in here, around trees. You just have to be careful about, not girdling trees accidentally and things like that. So just marking things, I think, is going to be one of the main maintenance things, is keeping everything marked that is not to be cut.
Yeah.
And having your way with everything else, but also the timing of the mowing, which is sometimes really just going to need to be one time a year. I know that it's the last intel I had on that is right around tax day, April 15th, that's the time to mow, and then you leave it alone the rest of the year and you let it sit through the winter because of the benefits of that presence, that biomass during the winter. So I think that Owen and his staff have worked with folks who are responsible for maintenance of municipal properties. And so I think that could be worked out in the process of what would be useful to have. What would you like to have on hand? What would you like to see in the field? I think that could be sort of optimized.
And if
Just-
you kind of look at developing within the DPW a champion of that area of training, someone that really takes it to heart, that makes a big difference versus gone to a lot of trainings, you sit there and go, yeah, look at it. But if someone is there in the midst of you, that really takes it into heart. So that's part of the training aspect of it I'd like to see too.
The other thing that, Pete, is knotweed and other invasives. Knotweed can just regenerate itself in any kind of water. So the idea is, to do some invasive training.
Yeah.
So that our highway department doesn't spread inadvertently through trying to do things, just timing wise, when to do knotweed, when's most effective to get rid of knotweed, like August, when it's dry, that
I
kind
think
of.
it's more towards the coming into the fall, late summer,
Right.
knotweed, which is different than, what some of the other
Whacking
ones
it
may
in the
be.
spring where it keeps
Yeah.
regenerating. I know.
Yeah.
Carolyn, that reminds me of the last item on our budget, which has question marks next to it. Did you want to just describe that in case it materializes?
You mean the Mass DOT training?
Riverbank?
Yes. Well, as I've said before, the Delaware County, New York Conservation District, the first exposure I had was in 2005 at a meeting in New York. And then Megan and I went this past September, and they have become so sophisticated in their training. They have a big manual. And so we're trying to get Mass DOT to work with them to take training, and then would be train the trainer for our highway departments on correct riverbank. And that's not part of the cost here really, but they've been so busy, we've not been able to connect with them to get a confirmation on. And when we met with Mass DOT, they were definitely interested, but we just haven't coordinated calendars and stuff. But that's part of it too.
I may be able to catch some of those guys next week at the conference.
Yeah. So
hopefully I'll have more information about that item.
yeah, and that would, help juice up this application. So we just wanted to make sure that you were aware that Andrew had advised us as a district, putting on my chair of the district district, that he wanted us to be part of the town's application to reduce the confusion. So we don't really need to do anything except follow up and how to wrap it in and make it a little bit stronger as a town, part of the town.
Yeah, I just have questions about the procurement. I haven't looked into it, but are we going to be able to ensure we can get Owen with Abound Design, or are we going to have to go out to
This is his budget that
bid?
he provided to us.
Right.
And he's walked the property with Pete at least once.
Yeah, I'm not talking about his experience. I'm just saying, because it's a state grant, do you know if we have to go through procurement and public open bidding, and that's what I'm kind of like,
We
I
have
didn't really
some
think about it.
With our state grants. That has not been required in our
Okay.
district, the grants that the districts have received from the state. However, there
Uh,
may be separate.
Yeah, we could check that out.
Only because the
Usually
dollar figure.
Because,
Yes.
Owen is, a specialized like engineer. You know how you can get engineering?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
write a bid and tailor it to
Right.
get the right type of engineer. No
Yeah, it's a
offense,
good
but
point. I thought you meant, is he available? Like, is his schedule?
no, I get he's more than
You mean,
happy.
is he eligible?
I
Yeah.
no, I just mean if we might have to go through a public
Yeah,
bidding process. So
We
Yeah.
could clarify that with
I think-
Andrew.
Yeah.
I just want us to have that be transparent with him because he has been so kind with
It's a
his
good
time.
question.
You
I'm
know,
glad you brought it up because that had not occurred to us. I
We,
don't think.
we haven't,
Um,
yeah, we haven't had to do that.
but we also haven't requested,
a town do it,
estimates,
right? Mm,
on this scale. We've done smaller projects with him.
right.
But I will say that, we can find that out. And also,
Yeah.
in terms of the requirements that we would need a person bidding on this project to have, I think it's going to be a very narrow, short list, rather.
And yeah, I mean, if we're thinking about trying to come up with MVP funded stuff that coordinates with you, and Franklin Conservation District are you thinking of applying for funding, Carolyn? I just need to understand, how are we supposed to fit together?
We were asked by Andrew Smith to
Yep.
include the projects that we had in mind for our own management and oversight in your town's proposal. So this would be a sub-project within your MVP proposal, and we're providing you the budget that would be part of that. This would be added to your existing budget. So we would be essentially a subcontractor.
Right.
But I mean, I guess I'm sort of echoing what you were talking about. If it's not a town-funded thing, are there different rules applying to the conservation district than there are to the town in terms of, do we have to have match? Or,
That's when Andrew and I spoke about it, he said the match was not an issue because if Deerfield was the applicant, they're exempt from the need for match.
so
So you're the lead on the proposal. We would be a partner.
you're a partner, but are we taking what you're suggesting and we're putting it into our proposal?
Yes.
And what I'm getting
Yes.
at, yeah. So then is it a town project at that point? And
Yes.
I guess we're exempt from this rural thing. That's great news.
Right.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
That's where the district, and I'm really just assisting on
Sure.
their creation of this proposal. I'm not going to be a part of it long-term, but the project coordination, the district would be coordinating all of the work that we've described here.
Great.
Yeah, and the other part of our application would be including some of the culvert design work that we talked about with Matthew, advancing the designs for Pleasant Street and Captain Lathrop, in particular, the one closest to Maine. So because of our utility or their sewer pumps there, and that culvert's failing. So we were kind of thinking it would be a good match because it's within the same stretch. It continues on the last grant, and it's kind of, honestly, it's giving them a lot of the work and doing outreach and plantings, but it's not as much of a town staff, go do outreach, go do all this stuff. And we're a little busy these days.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Well, hopefully, like David, Kyla can just figure out, contact information with David. David is
Yeah.
one of the ones that would be covered under our innovative grant for the Conservation District.
Yeah.
If he's interested. And, that's the kind of thing that, would complement this work because it's all the way up to the railroad bridge and beyond. So.
Yeah.
So
Under different
just a quick
funding.
question. So then in our application, sounds like there's 2 projects, or are there more, 3?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess, I don't know, what would you say? There's 3 kind of sub-scope proposals that is provided here, and then we'd only add on the culvert work. And it's odd though, because this is the first year they're doing like the one stop with, several different grant programs all together. And it's the same application, and you just click the right boxes for which programs and things you're applying for. And then they're going to, the way it was described to us in our meeting with the grant coordinators was that they'll shift to the funding and scopes of work to whatever is appropriate and that's how they're
And so
gonna
can
hold
they
things.
award down the road one or the other?
I think so.
partial
That's
they
the
were-
way it sounded to me.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said it was an experiment as much for them, so that's why it is as confusing as it sounds.
We're just, the district is just following Andrew's advice and doing it that way. So,
I think we had this kind of in mind for the past few years when we started the native plants projects as a real chance to restore an impaired waterway, and to get after a project that FERCog had been talking to people about for a while. And so we thought it could be a really great demonstration of what's possible. But to your point about measuring differences, that is also really where the money is in terms of persuading people that these nature-based solutions really work. And, starting first with the plants that are used to growing in those areas anyway, and letting them do their thing. I mean, one testimony that we had when, it wasn't Owen, it was Nick Miller and I, when we walked after that flood a couple of years ago down North Main Street, a gentleman who has 2 willows growing in his backyard between his house and the brook, he said, these are the only reason my basement is not wet like all my neighbors. So some of them know. Some of them know exactly what these trees can do.
well, then I think we can go right into the discussion of we had voted a couple months ago, I think in November-ish, I think our November meeting, we agreed that Pleasant Street culvert was probably our #1 choice, right? I'm pretty sure. So then the second choice from what has emerged, Alex, has been the Captain Lathrop, because that's collapsed or inadequate. It's inadequate, but it's also partially collapsed and ready to let go.
Yeah, the north side of Captain Lathrop is, it's kind of already degrading. There's a cone that's been sitting out there on the north side of that culvert for a little while now, and it's also a pump station for our sewer utilities that go through that culvert. So it's a priority in the sense that we don't want it to collapse the utility, and we also want to make sure it's shoring up there. So I think I'm on the right. Am I on hillside? Maybe I'm one up. Hold on. Yeah, my bad. Sorry. Drive back down here. This one here.
I think you're on.
Yeah,
side.
I'm in there. Let me see if I can pull up my. I was trying to pull up the Google map of. Oh, maybe that's Bloody Brook. One.
Keller.
Yeah.
That's the monument. Anyway, it's
So Captain Lathrop,
Matthew
one is it?
Morse, our DPW superintendent, was the one who really wanted it to be fixed. The Captain Lathrop.
And again, I understand it's because of the utilities that are associated with it too. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a
Yeah.
sewer line there and stuff. So if we can either vote on it, as moving forward so that more work can be done on those proposals, or if anyone feels strongly for something different. Does anybody else have another suggestion or have any issues with those priorities?
All right, I don't know where I went.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to make a decision.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion that we prioritize the 2 culverts for the town side of the application.
I make a motion, we prioritize the 2 culverts that we just spoke about. Don't remember, Captain Lathrop and Pleasant Street, is
Pleasant
it?
Street.
Yeah.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none. MA. Pete.
Yes. Aye. Yep.
Tim.
Yes.
Cece. Denise.
Yes.
And Carolyn, yes. So it's unanimous. All right. Well, Kyla and Megan, thank you very much for coming, and I appreciate that. Getting back to the sponge communities, we've kind of already talked about that, but the biggest thing, if anyone wants to look at it, there was in China, Shanghai, there's New Zealand, someplace in Indonesia, and Tim, did you have any other places that it looked like that there was interesting happening on the sponge community front?
No.
Well, the idea again, we were approaching this, or I was approaching this, as trying to deal with the 100-year storm, which would considerably impact all of the downtown, including town municipal buildings, with flooding. And I think the one thing that opened up for me, the decision was, you're looking for the improvement to the community by trying to become a sponge community is huge, because it is, you're cooling your community. We're affected here in Deerfield with drought, flooding, and heat, high heat, with climate change. And so what you're trying to do is reduce flooding risk and manage drought better, but also the urban heat island kind of thing you're trying to manage. And it is more green. And I think it's healthier. That was, what I took away from, the examples in Shanghai, Berlin, Jakarta, and Auckland in New Zealand. Generally, what they've done is their surface spaces have intentionally been become pervious, and you hold the water and filtrate the water, excess water, for up to 72 hours. And it just makes you a healthier community. Was there anything you wanted to add on that, Tim?
Well, I mean, basically, we've started doing it with the Leary lot, but I've raised it with the 1888 building team. It's not part of the original design, but could we look into possibly making the parking spaces themselves pervious versus the roadway, the high traffic roadway from the police department, and having them be traditional? I don't know that will happen, but the takeaway I had was finding small places within projects as you go forward, that you can introduce those techniques, so that little by little you create areas where water is infiltrated and sits, and it doesn't become part of the stream that's causing flooding for people.
Basically, you're detaining the runoff and you're cleaning it up before it joins the groundwater. So you really truly are becoming a healthier community, and you're reducing the flood risk. So that was interesting.
Denise has her hand up.
Yeah, Denise, what?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping, I've heard, I don't know whether this is true or a rumor, that Frontier wants to redo their parking lot. So I would suggest that is pervious pavement, that is definitely a requirement. Excuse me. And also I know, excuse me, in doing the Elm Street project, I mean, I don't know how much the pavement is going to be disturbed, but there's some pavement in front of, I think it's some hair salon or something. Rip that up and let's get rid of some of the pavement in downtown, because someone paved it over years ago. And I think if we got rid of a lot of that, we wouldn't have as many problems.
Right. And an example of that is the housing lot. It's about 70% impervious pavement right now. So during the development process, between the restoration of the brook and then the development process, hopefully will reduce that and become an actual retention of water versus just running
Right.
down the bloody brook.
So Carolyn, is that possible? So for instance, with the Frontier parking lot or any other large parking lot in Deerfield, can that be a requirement? I mean, can that be changed in a bylaw that they absolutely have to do that?
Well, I'm hoping the Conway School of Landscape Design will come up with recommendations to change our bylaws, but I would hopefully, that's the purpose. We have no money this year, but after October 1st, the next federal year, I'm hoping that we will have money under PL 566 to fund that will help fund what Frontier would have to pay, and also pay for the
Right, I understand that. So we have to find money, but how do you enforce that? That's the question. I think that's the big question.
Well, you can change bylaws, but you can also just town meeting, ask town meeting to support. It makes total sense. Why would you replace the parking lot with impervious surface when, there's a flood risk to the school?
Well, it comes down to dollars, and I mean that's not just talking about Frontier, but other industry in town. For instance, Pelican. I think part of the problem of what we were going to use for the park. I think part of that problem is the overflow from Pelican parking lot into that area that made it wetter than it had been. But again, I'm not a scientist. That's just conjecture.
Well,
Okay, I'll move on. Thanks.
that's why we're trying to go through the federal program, because you can use
Yeah.
industry, public bodies and private people and farms can participate.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
I was just going to reinforce the fact that that's the first thing that's going to get cut in any budget. Is, oh, that's not necessary. It's a lot cheaper just to put down pavement. And we've seen it a lot of times already in our history. So the question is, can there be a bylaw? I think that we need to be very proactive on this if we want anything to happen, because it won't. So I don't know whether it's up to the select board, Tim, or
It's not up to the select board. It's
is it up
The-
to the planning board? I mean,
The planning board,
what's
yeah.
the next step on this?
I'm not really sure whether it's up to the planning board. Maybe Alex and I can look into that.
Well, ultimately, it's up to voters, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can introduce a law,
Right.
as when any municipal related project is undertaken, you have to install, porous pavement, et cetera, to mitigate flood risks. And then the voters will vote, and probably the contractors will come and say, that's going to add 5,000 times the cost to the project. But if the voters decide, then we have an enforcement mechanism, which is what we need.
Right. Thank you.
Looking at the time, let's move on to public forum debrief. Alex, did you have anything that you wanted to mention on that in particular? I think there was so much information there. David has at least watched that, one of the few people, hopefully, that watched it.
Well, I was kind of in and out because I had to go to another meeting, so I don't know if I'm the
Okay.
best person
You know
to
what? We
speak
can
to
put
it.
that on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Let's set another meeting date. When is the application for the one-stop due?
March 20th is when it's due.
Okay. What's happening, does anyone have meetings on, I know the finance committee meets on Mondays. What's Tuesday? Like Tuesday, the 10th? Do we have the ability to meet Tuesday, the 10th?
Backing up, how much time do you need to finalize the application? And then, because we should be reviewing the preliminary application at the next meeting and have you enough time to make any adjustments you need to make, and then make sure you get it put in on time. So what's your guidance, Alex?
Yeah, that first or second week is fine. Because the 10th is even still like a week and a half almost to like make any edits.
The only reason I was worried about making it the first week is because, it would be helpful to know if we had the innovative grant and the biodiversity grant.
Yeah, that's true. It would impact the
That-
budget quite a bit.
Yeah,
So
and it would look good that we have, supporting projects already going, for sure. So does March 10th at 4 o'clock work for people?
I have a meeting at 5 with the Conway School, but 4 is fine. 4 to 5 is great. We can throw it first on the agenda just in
Yep.
case.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Denise, does that work for you?
Yeah, Tuesdays are problematic, but if everyone else can make it, that's fine.
We'll try to do another date, another time, but
Yep.
I'm worried about the 12th being already here, booked. So we'll do MVP on the 10th here at 4 o'clock, okay?
That's great. And we have a hard stop at 5 o'clock,
Yep.
which is,
And do we have any other business that anyone wants to discuss? And so that, Alex, if you can just put on the agenda the public forum debrief,
Mm-hmm.
and then if anybody has any more questions about the sponge community thing, maybe we should just put it on one more time, just so we can bring a little bit of technology. Maybe I can talk to Greg and we could bring some slides or something in on it.
On the GZA, or wait, sorry, which one?
Sponge, on
The
the
sponge
sponge
community.
community, yeah, because some of the slides that were at the and I went to were pretty good and it explained quite a bit. So maybe I can track some down at FERCog. Okay? All right.
motion
Take
to
a-
adjourn.
Denise.
Second that.
Okay. All those in favor? MA. Pete.
Tim, I.
Denise.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, David. Sure.
Talking about Captain Lathrop, you kept talking something.
Yeah,
Station.
it's co-located with the culvert.
Is that immediately adjacent to the culvert?
I'm not sure. Pete, do you know if it's in the culvert?
It's
The Captain Lathrop one?
first one coming out. Captain Lake,
I think why I asked the question, because I'm
There's a-
curious.
like going through right through the center of it.
Okay, so it is co-located.
Curious as to whether or not it's already been compromised, and I'll tell you. For them, many years since I was school, so having a keen eye on for sewage. And in the last two years, every time whatever goes up, runs into the unfriendly. Now it's looking like red. It smells like sewage, and never did before. So I offered that to you, not to say that it's happening, but as you're talking about, whether it's already compromised in some fashion, because it didn't exist before, but because of my history, working for it was very clear. The consistency of the water change color significant. It's milky white red. It smells like sewage.
It goes right through the culvert. I think what you're, is the failure of some, the other side of the railroad track. I wonder, because it's really wet there. This is just years of doing separate people.
I also wondered in similar kind of fashion, but if you're like me,
We don't need to talk it.
the ability to comply with.
Well, pretty good job.
Any septic systems are sort of work that out. Because clearly, over the years, it has something characteristic.
You're welcome to hang your mouth if you want.
And this is a model, very much in the.
Totally off. What people on, but it, every time it rains, there's water on the other side of the railroad track, on the North Main Street. It goes out, that house, that house in Columbus. No, well, the next house, right next, across from, the dinosaur place, called that, but it's the one as you turn out, North Main Street, that little.
Little one.
Their septic tank, right, adjacent to the field.
Field that always floods.
Right underneath.
And you're saying only when it floods, but if it was the town sewer of Captain Lathrop, it's in the middle of the culvert, and it would leak all the time anyway. But I think it's,
Well, I asked the question because some of the last couple of years,
Yeah.
you know, You know, the lyrics of the old song. Anytime it rains, sewage all over.
I've been in that culvert with the chief. He went further than I did, but we were like, what is in the middle of this culvert? Is that a log in there? We both, and we didn't like totally go over it, but we didn't see anything coming out of it, but it's, we're in the middle of it.